Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your man, Tim Swain. Listen, I'm excited about this amazing, young, prolific writer, woman, Pan-Africanist who recently visited Ghana, has some great things to say, and maybe some not so great things, but we're going to talk about it today. We're going to jump straight into it. What I want you to do is introduce yourself for the people. Let us know maybe your full name, what state you're in. And, you know, people always ask what you do for a living, but let me ask, what's your passion? State, your name, what's your passion?
Well, my name is Taylor Barkley. I am originally from Columbus, Ohio, but currently I am in Cleveland, Ohio, located because that's where I work. I went to Kent State University, just recently graduated, and my passion is definitely education, but specifically with children, because right now I work with kids. So I would say that's what I'm most passionate about.
Okay, so you recently visited the continent, specifically West Africa, more specifically Ghana, but let's back up in your journey, right? We talked to a lot of people about going to Ghana and why they went to Ghana or even some other place on the continent, but I want to learn more about your journey of Blackness. Like, tell us a little bit about, you know, how you viewed yourself as a Black woman, maybe some of your philosophies and where that sense of even wanting to go to the continent was formulated.
So growing up, I was growing up in the church. So I was small family, small church home. And I went to a small school as well, which was predominantly Black. So I was surrounded by a lot of people who looked like me. I had people that I could look up to. I wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't say that I thought that being Black was like a bad thing necessarily until I got to high school. And my high school was a big, predominantly white high school, public school in the middle of a suburban city. So I would say like that's where I realized I stuck out the most. And like when I started to join more clubs and be a part of more things, that's when like the circle of Black friends that I had got smaller and smaller. And sometimes I was the only Black girl in like those different spaces. So like recognizing that I was physically different and then also I talked different from everybody else was one of those things that kind of followed me. And then I felt myself starting to like shapeshift a lot, not wanting to be like the overly loud Black girl or the one that uses a lot of slang and stuff like that. So when I got to college, I feel like everybody kind of had this phase, but I got to college and I was like, okay, yeah, pro-Black this, and like, we don't like white people and all that stuff. And so I joined a lot of like pro-Black organizations and like kind of found myself like alienating myself from my white counterparts. And I was also a Pan-African Studies major or minor, I'm sorry, at Kent State. So of course you're learning about the different countries and like you're learning more and more about the continent and just refueling that pride in ourselves as Black people. And so I'm like, oh, bet like any place in Africa would be a great place for me to go to. And so when I had this opportunity, I'm like, yeah, I'm going back to the motherland. Like I'm about to be connected to my roots and all of that. So I would say that's kind of like the journey as like how my Blackness has like kind of transformed from like being young and then now being like an educated college graduate who is Black as well. So.
You know, there's a lot of people watching this who they really don't understand the concept of this kind of pro-Black, Pan-African, like, you know, Tim, why are you talking so much about Black this, Black that? For somebody who has never had to live in a world where they were, let's say, predominantly looked at based on the color of their skin, walk us through like what that is like and why this kind of like connecting to your roots voyage was so important to you at this time in your life.
So kind of being like that only Black girl in a lot of spaces, it's alienating and it's very lonely. So it's almost like you don't see anybody else that looks like you. You always question like if the people that you're connecting with in those spaces can even relate to like your struggles. And then like when you hear people who don't look like you saying like, oh yeah, we're exactly the same and we've been through the exact same things. And I'm like, well, no, I've been through something a little different, been through something quite a bit different. And then you just it gets uncomfortable really fast. If you weren't already uncomfortable when comments like that happen, especially in the climate of our country and where I live, like it can get really uncomfortable and very like touchy, like really fast. And so just being in those spaces it can be lonely. It can definitely be like, just feel like you're always on the outside. And so someone who's been in those spaces, you see the continent of Africa, and you're just like, oh, I just want to go to where all of my people are. And that was my mindset when I got to college too. I'm like, I just want to go where my people are. I don't really want to be around a whole lot of people who don't understand me, who don't even really see me or see my color or my skin or anything like that. I just want to be where like that sense of belonging or that family sense is. And so that was my whole mission when I got to college, and even like part of my motives in wanting to go to Ghana at first. So I'm just like, oh, I just want to be where the family is, because the vibe was always family, togetherness, like we're all on one accord, we all look alike, we had very similar experiences, and we're all kind of bonded by that like similar trauma of like slavery and the things that we all have in common. So
do you have people in your family that have traveled that maybe sparked your interest or encouraged you to go? Or was it just something that you had that was built up because of your studies and your experiences?
That I know of, I don't think anyone in my family has actually traveled to Africa or anywhere in Africa. I was more so because I love to travel. I got a chance to travel at a very young age to Europe. But I was like, I took advantage of more so the travel opportunity, but then also like that sense of connection that I felt like I had to the people who were in that country. And so that is what kind of spurred me to want to go. I didn't have anybody else in my family that had gone, but they were like, hey, if you can raise the funds, then you can definitely go. Like, we'll support you 100%.
Okay, so nobody was like, yo, you better watch out. You're going to get kidnapped. Somebody
No.
a lion going to attack you. Nobody was on that kind of stuff.
No, surprisingly, I got more of that when I went to Europe. People were like, oh,
Really?
like comparing that experience to like the Taken movie where like people thought that one girl went over to Europe and she got kidnapped. Yeah, I got more of that when I went to Spain, Italy, and France when I was in high school. They're like, oh, don't go over there and get kidnapped and everything. And I'm like, why would you say that? But I didn't get any of that when I was going to go to Ghana, probably because like high school versus now I'm grown. But yeah, no, I didn't get any of that.
So you talked about, I just want to go where my people are. I just want to be where my people at. And you talk about this community aspect. So you finally get to Ghana. You arrive there. Let's keep it real for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience that sense of community and connectedness that you anticipated you would experience?
Not immediately. I think I was more so met when we first got into Ghana. I was more so met with the immediate frustrations of I'm in a place where I don't know anybody outside of the people that I travel with. I barely know them. And then I'm also confronted with like, I don't necessarily understand what's happening in this moment. And so we're supposed to get off the plane. It's taking forever. We're all hot and tired. And nobody knew that like once we got off the plane, we're actually going to get COVID tested again. That communication didn't travel back to where we were standing. And so I'm like, okay, I'm already in a country where I don't know anybody. It's a lot of those like piling on frustrations. So that sense of like togetherness and family, that didn't really hit me until I would say like a couple days in being in Ghana, but not immediately when I got there. No, it was a lot of travel frustrations that were like, okay, did I even make the right decision to come here? Like, it's just a lot going on. And a lot of it is very unfamiliar. And for someone like myself, who is very by the book and like everything is supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen, when things were kind of happening outside of my control, I was just like, okay, did I make a mistake? I'm really frustrated here and I can't control a whole lot. So I'm like, let me just be quiet. I'm gonna just keep it all in. It's gonna happen at some point. The whole kumbaya moment that I'm expecting is gonna happen, I hope. But now I'm here, so.
Okay. Now, that community, that connectedness that you talk about, would you say you felt that with the actual Ghanaians, or was that with the people that you travel with, or both? Did it not happen? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it more so happened with the people that I traveled with. I would say because we were all kind of rooted in that same understanding of we've all never been here for the most part. Most of us hadn't been here before. We don't necessarily know what's happening, but we're all here to learn and to soak in the culture. So over the few days, like the 10 days that we were there, we grew closer and closer, like in our experiences and like the stuff that we were learning about, the excursions we went on, the classes and all that stuff. I more so grew closer to them. I wouldn't say I didn't feel any kind of togetherness with the people, especially in like the villages that we went to or on the different tours. It just wasn't on the same level. But I did feel, in a sense, welcomed by the people of the country, especially when we went to Nuebu. and like the kids there. And of course, like I said, kids are very much my passion. So being there with all the kids and being able to interact with them, that is probably when I felt that first sense of like, okay, they're just like me in a way. Like
Wow.
that togetherness really came from that experience. That's what solidified it. And I'm like, wow, I had to take a step back and realize, okay, I'm really in Ghana, and there's not really like, yes, there's a lot of space that physically separates us, and there's a lot of things that make us different, but like I actually feel at home here. So
Wow. That's something that a lot of people, particularly of African descent, say when they come to places like Ghana where they feel at home. And the
mm,
other thing is, I always tell people when you go for a 10-day experience, a lot of times, hopefully, you're going with an experience that kind of insulates you from some of the craziness, so it
mhm.
don't scare you so much. You're like, oh Lord Jesus, what do I get myself into? And at the
Right.
same time, I think that one of the things I've realized too is that culture is really the thing that is different, right? It's not necessarily like the thing that binds us, sorry, the thing that binds us is culture, not necessarily color, right? Because there's a phrase that say all skin folk
And kinfolk.
ain't kinfolk, right? And
Right.
so when you come to Ghana, what we realize is we have people that have lived in a totally different context for a very different amount of time. And then there's narratives that have been created by both sides, depending on where you live, both hemispheres. And sometimes those narratives are not known to each other. And so, like there's a lot of people that talk about, I had one lady that talked about she came and, it was like, oh, everybody's black. So that means the unfortunate perception was we all think the same. We've all had the same black experience, but
Mhm.
it's not necessarily true. My next question for you is when you think back upon your time in Ghana, what was like, let's say, a couple of moments where you reflected on and you were just like, this is really dope. This is amazing. Like, this is something that all the frustration and all that, this
Mhm.
is the moment that was worth it.
Okay, definitely had a couple of those moments while I was in Ghana. I would say after we got settled on the first, now I wouldn't say the first night, but the first full day that we had in Ghana after we got settled, I was walking back to my room. It was very simple, but just being able to like kind of take in the surroundings and just see how beautiful it is and be separated physically from everything that I had waiting for me back in the States. That was definitely one moment where I was just like, wow, like I really like this is really awesome. Like I'm actually in Ghana, like I'm breathing the air here. I'm actually here. I'm immersing myself in the culture. That was really beautiful to me. So one, it was definitely just the change of scenery and the change of pace, which is different than American culture, where it's like very hustle and bustle on the go all the time. So the change of pace was definitely one where I was very amazed by that. The second one was probably in Nuevu, when we were with like the kids and we got a chance to come for like the welcoming ceremony, and then like the second day where we learned more about like the schools and all the things that Anadaso had done for like the community and stuff like that. That was another moment where I was just like, wow, okay, this is fire. Like I just love, I wanted to be, it inspired me and I wanted to do more, and I wanted to see like where I could like insert myself in like seeing more change happening. So that was definitely one moment where that was like a wow moment for me. And I think the last one would be when we went to the library. So as I got the books up here, so I definitely love to
Yeah.
read. As an author myself, being in that library where there were so many people who looked like me who had written books, and it being a library where like all our culture was on the forefront. It wasn't like we were hidden in that back section, like the back of the library. We were on the forefront and displayed throughout the entire library. And
Now
so I
explain
had
that. Sorry, explain that library to people who may not know what you're talking about.
right. So it's called the Library of Africa and African Diaspora. And so it is a library curated by, I can't remember her name, but curated by this woman, and it has all African American like authors, philosophers, thinkers, anybody who's put their ideas into a book. They were all in this library, and she made it her mission to find original copies and like original editions of like all of these books. So it was full of great thinkers and the great minds of of generations prior to me and even like currently. And so walking in there, I'm just like, wow, I've never been in a space where there's so like my blackness is seen in so many books. So
Mm.
it definitely combined like my love for like my identity as like a black woman and my love for books and reading and just learning more and more into one. And so the fact that I was able to talk to her and really kind of get to know her a little more and see some of my favorite authors up there, like Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison, and then even eventually being able to get my book like in that library was just like I was like, I never even thought that it would
Your
ever
book
be.
is in your book is in that library?
It is, yes.
For real?
Yeah.
Man,
I was
you
so
should,
shocked.
wow.
And it didn't hit me until I got back to the States. I was like, wait a minute. Like when we were like communicating about like how to get the book out there, because shipping is definitely different. But I was like, wow, so my book is really in a library that has like all of these great and like amazing authors and writers and philosophers. Like my book is amongst those people. That was a huge wow moment to me, because I was like, I just wrote a little poetry book. It's just like my hearts and feelings and some words. And I never thought it to be on that level of like some of the great poets that I know. And so to see that happen and like have that all take place it was amazing for me. That was probably the top moment for me.
That's incredible. What I want you to do now is you said a lot of great things, and I want you to speak to the person right now watching. Let's say they've been in one of the countries in Africa watching. They've never been outside the U.S. And you talk a lot about like being around your people, being disconnected from the States. And there are some people that are literally trying to figure out, like, why would you come from heaven, right? From America.
Right.
Like why would you come to Africa? And like, I don't understand it. Why is this so important? So many of y'all Black folks from America, from the UK are coming back to Africa. And so many of us are trying to go there.
Right.
What's the big deal?
I would say to anyone who is like me and like trying to get back to Africa, I would say the biggest draw and like the biggest draw to me is definitely it's either the community, a tie between the community and like having a full sense of knowledge of like where I've come from. And because I'm a big brainiac, love to learn new things, that was probably what solidified like wanting to go on this trip for me. So for anybody else who is like debating on like, okay, so why leave like my comfort and go to a place where things are completely different, and not wrong, but different, and like experience all of this, I would say it's to become a more well-rounded, I hate to say well-rounded Black person, but essentially, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. To learn more about like where I come from and like my roots, and like being able to have like those really cool conversations with people who are from Ghana, and like evaluating those different perspectives of like African Americans, and then the ones who were born in Ghana. I think all of those things is what helped to create like a well-rounded like perception and knowledge of just who you are. And I think we eliminate a lot of ignorance when we put ourselves in different positions where we can learn more and kind of take ourselves out of the picture, and kind of just seeing just how other people live, like people who look like us, who may not have the same circumstances. So that's what I would say to anybody who is like trying to figure out like, why should I go? I would say more so for the knowledge and like get the full experience, and like just to learn more about who you are and where you come from, because we've all come from Africa. And so if it's cool if you're comfortable with where you are in America, but we all kind of long for that I guess that piece of knowledge of like, who are we really, and like where did we actually come from? Because people run around with a lot of false narratives and things, and it's like it's good to know for yourself and not just what somebody is telling you.